Thank you for attending our breakout session, Inertia, Keeping Forward Momentum in Recruiting. We're going to go kind of down the line here and introduce our panelists, and then we're going to have some kind of round robin questions. And then we're going to kind of open it up to everybody to kind of throw the questions at them. Not intimidating, but you know. All right, so first we've got Timothy Norland. He's the Vice President of Driver Employment at Rail Transport. And then we have Andrea Mueller. She's the Media and Onboarding Manager at Prime. We have Melissa Nishin. She's the Vice President of Driver Recruiting at Epps Transport. And we have Greg Iverson, the Director of Recruiting at Coke. All right, so first question, Tim, here we go. What do you think is the most predominant issue in retention?
I don't think it's a hard one. I think you talk to drivers, it's all about respect. You know, they want to be respected not only by the people that they work for and work with, but by the customers. In fact, we were sitting at our table and CDL, Darren Williams at CDL Jobs popped that post. I don't know if any of you have seen it before. It's a sign that's at a receiving office at a big distribution center in the Kansas City area. And it says, if you're late, you'll wait. I don't care about your problems. It just goes into a diatribe. And that you got to remember, that's the kind of people that drivers are dealing with. And that creates turnover. So the big thing with retention is just making sure that you appreciate the drivers for what they do. And that's not, well, I give them a hat, we buy them a burger on driver appreciation. That's every single day. Every time I see a driver, I ask them where they're from, how long they've been with Rail, and then I thank them. Something as simple as that when you see a driver can really pay off dividends in turnover, you know, that's or in retention. And that's something that we've really focused on this past year and a half through the pandemic. Our turnovers, or retention rate, excuse me. I like to talk about retention, not turnover, but our retention's never been better at Rail. It's far below the industry average rates right now, and we're very, very happy about that. And we want to keep that going. And thank God it is, because it's made my job easier. I don't have to recruit as many drivers when we retain the ones that we hire.
Great, thanks. Andrea, what can be done to ensure that companies are able to fulfill all of the promises made during the recruitment process?
Oh my gosh. Good morning. Good afternoon. So we partner with Stay Metrics. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of them. That's a way for us to check where we're falling short, and that's been really helpful. We've partnered with them for several years. And another way is just to ask them, where are we falling short? Get on social media groups. Our company has a ton that are ran by drivers, not by us. And so I'll just go in there and ask them questions, and then look to see what they're posting and complaining about, and find if there's, you know, something that you missed on the recruiting side, or orientation or training. I get a lot of my ideas, or our ideas for improvement, just by stalking our drivers online. And instead of getting mad about them complaining, I just try to flip it and see, okay, where can I make this better? Because usually they're not asking for not all the time asking for more money. It's usually just like, oh, I'm frustrated because I don't know the hours of this shop, or I don't know how to get a hold of this person. And it's easy fixes that we just need to communicate better is usually the number one issue. But yeah, I ask them questions, and then we have an open terminal. So I like to just go up to drivers and ask them, what can we do to make things better? If you have an hour or two, that's a great plan. But just be willing to listen and then figure out a solution, and then tell them that you created a solution. The biggest thing is to let them know, hey, we're fixing these small things, because they're not really going to notice unless you tell them that you're listening and making things better.
Awesome, thank you. Melissa, what would you say is the average cost to a company every time a driver leaves?
I think this differs for every company. Depending on how that company operates, there's a standard or a industry number that's thrown out quite often, $5,000 to $8,000. For us specifically, it's usually in the 6,000 range, and currently right now it's probably higher than that, because to try to fill a truck or a position that somebody leaves at is taking much longer than it did in the past. So again, it just depends on your spend, but for us, marketing is about $1,500 a hire. All of the recruiting and orientation and onboarding costs equal $3,200, and then your utilization in there. So it's very costly, and I think for everybody at your company to understand that cost is important. Because in our industry, OR is everything. You know, that's the magic number that we're all looking at. So if everybody can understand what that cost is, it's important because it does affect your OR tremendously. So.
Great, thank you. Greg, what programs or initiatives can be implemented to improve company culture?
Company culture. So does anybody here think that the next conference could probably be based around recruiting manager retention? Because right now it's like where's Waldo now? I need a scorecard. Everybody's going around there, and of course, so when you think about that, if everybody's moving around, company culture comes from the top down, right? It has to be from the owners, from the leadership team on down. They're the ones that develop it, whether it's, culture of family, education, hard work, long hours, whatever it is you pick. If that's your culture, you need to own it, right? If you have a leadership team that's coming and going, you can never develop that because it's inconsistent, right? You'll always have it. What we did, and we've always had, we're kind of fragmented. We're in different offices, so it's hard to keep everybody in one place and develop that culture. It's always been pretty solid. But a few years ago, what we did was we decided to get all the leadership team, and we spend time with all the other departments and listen to everybody and how they're talking to the drivers and how they're talking internally. And you could hear a different conversation, right? When you talk to the drivers, it's a lot of the time it was them or those drivers, or they're on the same team, right? We're all together, but you had a different conversation. So we tried to break that down by developing our culture. And what we do now is, and I can tell you, we were at 3 years ago, we were at about 95% turnover. We're about 700 trucks. A lot of our stuff is specialized. It's harder work and unique stuff, but we started bringing a lot of the drivers in and spending time with fleet manager, road service, recruiting, whatever they wanted to do. We'd spend a day with them. And we did the same with the office employees because we wanted to ensure that as a leadership team, we developed that message. We wanted to make sure everybody's saying the same thing. And now that all the drivers came in and everybody's shared time together, I know for a fact that if someone comes in, one of you guys come in, step into my road service department, my maintenance department, you're gonna get the same message as if you're talking to me. It's really consistent. Our turnover is down. We gained about 150 trucks this last year. Our turnover is down to about 48%. I think because of a lot of that, the culture that you change.
Great, thanks. Tim, what can your recruiters do to make sure that they are connecting with drivers in a meaningful way to help conversions?
Short answer, listen. We've spent a lot of time working with our recruiters over the past couple of years. And one thing I've done at Rail is Rail's always been for lack of a better word, a starter company for a lot of drivers. We have our own CDL training program, but really didn't focus on experienced drivers until I joined the organization 4 years ago. So taking recruiters that were very process oriented, very deliberative in steps to bring somebody on board, which works for students, doesn't work for experienced drivers. And what we found is when an experienced driver would call in, the recruiter would immediately go into sales mode, wouldn't listen to the driver, just started spieling what Rail had to offer. So we had to retrain them to be listeners first and find out what's got the driver looking. Why are they calling us today? Let's understand that. And then let's sell to that rather than, hey, thanks for calling. Here's what I got in your area, XYZ. And it's for some recruiters, the younger recruiters, I will say they adapted very quickly and they were very successful. I've got some recruiters that have been with the organization for quite a long time, have been recruiters for quite a long time. And it's been a hard change for them. They want to go back to revert to the old ways, but I'm going to use Leah's trademark line, speed to lead, and it's all about speed right now. It's about listening to the driver. What are their wants? What are their needs? And then selling to those wants and needs and gaining commitment before you let that driver go.
Great. Andrea, what is management and HR's role in helping to touch base with drivers to make sure that their needs are being met and that they are satisfied with their job?
Our drivers have fleet managers, and at Prime, I think a lot of companies have adopted this, but we do, where they're incentivized directly off of their driver's success. their safety, their on-time service. So that's helped a lot with the role of the fleet manager, getting them to be engaged and caring about the drivers. We also have weekly driver meetings, which is pretty normal. But due to the pandemic, we started live streaming them and answering questions in real time. And that's been really successful with getting the good and the bad and the ugly all at once. But being able to respond to those and let them know, hey, we're listening and we're okay with the negative comments or feedback. We need to hear that to get better. And just our open culture is really important. And we really realized that with the pandemic, how important it was to us to have the ability for the fleet managers to see their drivers and road assist and payroll. We missed out on a lot over the last year, but it's exciting to see it get back to normal and see that connection with the drivers because it just means so much to them. You can't separate your office from your drivers because you'll never hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's really, really important.
Awesome. Melissa, do carriers need to rethink their model, restructuring logistics and the demand on the driver to make the position more appealing?
Yeah, hopefully we've all been doing that in the last several years because the market's changed considerably. So, many carriers, the over the road or long haul and being out longer time has changed drastically again over the last three to 5 years. But now more than ever, if you're a carrier that is struggling to find drivers and your turnover is spiked or, you've got certain accounts, in meeting with other people doing the same role I am, it's funny, people are firing customers. There's things happening that you're just not really heard of very often. Qualification changes, route changes. Somebody mentioned it earlier, I think, about the, dropping and doing swaps and doing that piece. So I think we're just continuously having to look at your business model on all levels, not just freight, but my hiring process has changed. The amount of applications coming in, the amount that recruiters can handle. It just, you have to be looking at everything constantly and tweaking it. And if you're not, then you're not going to grow. It's very few carriers in here are in a good spot that I've talked to so far that do not need drivers or, they're 100% capacity. So we're all in the same boat. And so I think you just got to always be not giving up and thinking of what next and trying new things. And, what works for me may not work for you, but it's what works for your company. So
Yeah, absolutely. Greg, what recruiting methods help ensure that drivers that get hired stay with the company?
That's on operations. That's not on recruiting. So. There, good question. So I'm probably a bit of an outlier with a lot of my recruiting brothers and sisters, but I don't. My recruiters, I kind of consider them career counselors. We don't do a lot of salespeople, right? But I don't do a lot of hard pressure sales. My team, we really look for people that fit on our team. So if we have a conversation and someone's talking about needing to be home, they keep referring to being home weekly, and we have a 14-day, we're probably going to pass on the driver until he calls back and say they change their mind. We talk to a lot more drivers than we probably bring in for that reason. But we do a lot of things. Everything we do is in writing. We talk to the driver about their time out and their pay, and we put it all in writing, send them a welcome letter. We have videos that we made of all the fleets. A lot of our stuff is kind of specialized stuff, boats and golf carts and ATVs that we haul around. So we send out a video after we talk to the driver, let them take a look at it. We talk to, so they can get an exact idea of what they're looking at. Most of the drivers that come with us, I have call a fleet manager now before they come in. They talk to all of them. Get the same story from the recruiter they get from the fleet manager. It's really consistent. So by the time they get through orientation, I rarely, if ever, hear them say that wasn't what we were told. And it really works. It's a lot more process, but it works.
Tim, what benefit offerings do you think really get serious drivers' attention?
Benefits? Well, everybody's got about the same benefits that we really do. I mean, everybody's got health, dental, life, disability, 401k, etc. We try to differentiate a little bit. Our 401k is a profit sharing program rather than an employer match. Drivers, we've had to explain to drivers how that works and how they can actually earn more money into their retirement account through that process. But I think the big benefit is is home time. If a carrier can rethink how they do things and get drivers home more often, because that's quite frankly, I mean, what happens when your recruiter says, "Hey, what's got you looking? What do you need?" "Oh, I need to be home every day and I need to make $100,000 a year," right? I mean, that's what we hear all the time. "I need a local job, need a local." So we challenged our operations team to help us build more home daily positions. We actually have regional fleets now where the drivers are running almost hub and spoke and meeting up with other drivers and swapping loads, but they get to go home every day. And that's been hugely successful. That's a one area of our business I've not struggled to hire drivers. Now, take over the road long haul, 11 to 14 days out. I can't beg, borrow, or steal a driver to do that because the home time offerings are better, and that's what everybody goes to. But really, on the benefit side, I don't think it's equipment. I don't think it's the basic benefits that we offer. It's actually the job.
Andrea, what do you wish your vendors understood about the challenges that you're facing with recruiting and retention?
I think getting help, like they talked about earlier, is that we're having to rethink our strategies. And I wish more vendors would come to the table with new ideas because we don't have all the ideas when we're living inside of our own companies. I have very few vendors that ever offer something like new and fresh. It's usually just fill out this form and then we'll get some jobs posted. And I want to hear new ideas that we can integrate into our strategy. Or questions about, hey, why do you do it this way? Or why is it worded this way? Instead of just taking what we're providing and then spewing it out there. You know, it would be awesome if they would just try a little bit more. I'm willing to spend more money if you just give me something new to work with.
Great. Melissa, would you say that your team has been able to feel a hit because of the rise in demand for local driving jobs with Amazon, Uber Eats, DoorDash, etc.?
Yeah, I think in general, every carrier who isn't just set up as a dedicated specialized position has felt this. If you look at your fleets though, like my fleet, we have 1,500 drivers and 65% of them have been with us for a very long time. We know that those drivers are really not going anywhere and everybody's got that group of drivers. So, you know, it's the other 40% that are moving around. And so there are so many, not even just in the transportation industry, there's so many jobs out there. I mean, we see the news every day, the signs that are out there, and you're affected daily by just going to a store and something's not there that you used to buy because there's such a shortage of everyone needing help right now. So I think in general, yeah, we're feeling it tremendously. And I think it's going to be a while before it changes. And again, it goes back to changing your model. Like if you're not able to compete with those and make that driver's living situation or his work-life balance better, then, you know, you're at a loss.
Yep. Greg, can you explain from your experience the importance of accurately articulating the positions that you're advertising for and crafting solid calls to action?
So my goal is always to, for all of our jobs, I probably have, we have like 18 different fleets that we hire for. And it's clearly and accurately communicate the open roles so the drivers know exactly what they're getting into before they even call us. It's important to me. And it changes the conversation with the recruiter. They know exactly what they're getting into. I see a lot of the ads out there, that makes it sound like something that's roses and unicorns. Best family-oriented company around. We all use that in the day, but we just make sure it's really clear what they're getting into. And of course the call to action. Remember we used to put those big starbursts on everything, sunburst thing. And you have to, because I still see a lot of websites where the driver's looking at it and you still have to find it up in the corner, kick the little link and drop down and search around. I started my career as a driver. Maybe that's the problem, or maybe my wife says other reasons why I have a 15-second attention span. But it's you have to make it prominent, right? You have to, because people aren't going to spend that much time. You have to get their attention. Apply now, apply here, whatever you want to call it. But that's how we do it. And everything we do is just painstakingly do the details for the ads.
Tim, what are your insights into benefits that can help retain younger drivers?
So a lot of the folks that we get that go through our CDL training program are younger folks that have come out of food service, warehouse work, etc. And it was mentioned earlier, they don't want to stay out away from home for weeks at a time. So building a career path for them so they can see, hey, come on board, earn your CDL, go out with a trainer, see a little bit of the country, and then you can come back and you can be on a regional fleet or a dedicated fleet. You can be home every day if you want to be home. Oh, and then after you do that for a while, you can become a driver trainer for the company and train the next generation of drivers. And after that, after you've done that for a while, for a couple of years, there's an opportunity for you to become a CDL instructor in our training program, or come into the office. A number of the folks that we have in the office in our operations team actually were drivers, so they understand drivers. That's kind of been a double-edged sword. Got to be careful because sometimes they bring some bad habits or how they were treated by a dispatcher in the past. But no, it's the career pathing for these folks, and let them know how much money they can make along the way, because as Leah's slide showed, it's pretty slim in their early days when they get into trucking. It's up to all of us to raise wages. Quite frankly, I think drivers deserve to make six figures a year based on the job that they do. I mean, how many of us would like to work 14 hours a day and be away from home for 11 to 14 days at a time? I think there's probably not a person in this room that would want to do that, but we expect them to do it and be happy making $65,000 a year. So we've got to do that, but that in turn means we've got to get increased rates from our customers so that we can fund that. And that's where the challenge is. We can't pass that cost off quite so easily. But no, back to the question, career path, and make sure they understand that career path, they can see that career path.
Absolutely. Andrea, what are your concerns about the graying driver population?
I like that verbiage. My dad's a graying driver, so he's almost done himself. He's looking forward to retirement. But my biggest fear with that is that I feel like the new generations that are coming in are less likely to stay in the industry like my father has his whole life. I don't think they see it as a long-term career. So I think our biggest issue is going to be convincing them to stay in the industry. I think somebody brought it up earlier, but we are seeing a lot of people that are not leaving us and going somewhere else, or just leaving the industry altogether. So I think that's what we have to face, is that that's not magically going to go away. We need to find some way to make this a reason, like to stick with them, or like you said, career path. And hey, you could become a fleet owner, you can break off from us, but you still need to stay in it's great to stay in the industry. Just brainwash them, basically, is how you figure that out. Yeah. But it's definitely a concern. And like you guys, we also have a CDL program. So luckily our average age is less than the average for the industry. So we're blessed there, but it's just going to get harder and harder as the new generation comes through and these other drivers age out.
What, can I check?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So I just told you that 65% of my fleet has been there for a really long time. Well, 65% of them are a graying population. So again, I think that's a big, huge concern, is when that happens, there is a huge population that is leaving our industry, in that age range. And so that's going to be, we're feeling pain now. That scares me.
That's uncontrollable turnover. There's nothing we can do about that.
Right. Yeah. Tim, do you find yourself able to draw any parallels between what's happening in the industry now and what's happened in the industry during any other point in your career?
Yeah, but to a greater extent. I remember after 9/11, that really was when the industry or the driver needs shifted. You think prior to 9/11, drivers were typically out. Most companies, you're out for 3 weeks, you're in a day off for every so many days out, and that's how it works. That's take it or leave it. That's the job. After 9/11, family became very important to a lot of drivers, and more and more drivers were unwilling to do that. And you saw the rise of regional fleets and home weekly and staying closer to home rather than the long haul operations. And now with the pandemic, we've seen the same thing. I don't want to be away from my family. I want to be home every day. And, 1 million, I think Leah said 1 million home daily jobs out there for Class A, Class B drivers right now with Amazon and others. We've got to compete with that. If you're an irregular route truckload carrier, that's tough. You got to adapt and change. If you keep doing the same thing, quite frankly, you're going to fail, and that's why we've challenged ourselves to reinvent ourselves and become better and create the jobs that drivers are looking for. But yeah, really, when the pandemic hit, home weekly isn't good enough anymore. It's got to be the home daily. So we're really challenged to build more and more of those.
Right. Let's throw this one at Greg. What areas are you finding that you need the most support with in regards to recruiting? This could be support from internal or external entities.
Mostly internal. I think we're getting there, but the support from operations and any other teams is just vital. It's because I include them in everything we do. In the recruiting process, we tried talking to the drivers on the way in, describing our detail. I work with the fleet managers every week to make sure our fleet details are accurate, what we're imparting to the drivers. So that support, ongoing support, is just so important. And if everybody, if the rest, you really need to get everybody involved. It's so important. I've called, I think everybody does it. We all call other recruiters to see what they're saying, right? And sometimes it's a mess. You can't get details, and you wonder why you're not bringing in enough drivers. But some of it's, you got to get everybody involved and get the recruiters as much information as possible.
Absolutely. Melissa, would you say that it's fair that retention is the key to more than survival? Like, is it the key to thriving?
Absolutely. A few of us on this panel have, there's an industry standard of what turnover, looks like. And so, we've already, at EPS, we've always been proud that our turnover is way below that average. But right now in this market, that's too much. And so trying to give that message to, leadership, do we have a retention issue if our turnover is that much better? And I'm like, no, we do right now, because if we could just keep 2 drivers a week, that's 100 drivers in a year. I mean, it adds up very fast. And in my world, that I would have no positions left to fill if that was the case. So we have initiated quite a few different, retention teams back up, a call center, making sure people are doing more interviews before they're leaving, and even kind of having a driver that's on the bubble or a warning sign. We're trying to figure out a better way to manage that, and train managers on the front end, how to identify that early and how to handle it early. Is just been our focus for the last several months.